You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
That's not true. That's impossible.
You're listening to Making Tracks. This is episode 143. I'm your co-host Mark Newbold, and joining me today is a man who knows his way to Exegol without a wayfinder. Mark, how you doing?
Hey, who needs a wayfinder when you've got Apple Maps and the Force? How's you, dude? How's things?
I'm very well. Yeah, it's been a busy week on the site and a busy week in life, and it's gone like that, as it always does.
Yeah.
Has anything arrived at Casa Mulcaster this week?
Yeah, Casa Mulcaster had a nice care package from, I suppose you could say, the Fantha Tracks people. Say the people. You didn't send it, Matt sent it.
He did.
Basically, it was a stuff that I asked to get brought for me at Celebration. I actually got one of those Camtano cool bags, which I thought was quite fun. A Mandalorian exhibition t-shirt and a lanyard, and I got one Fantha Tracks badge in the box as well. I've got some stuff coming, but it hasn't arrived just yet. How about yourself?
Oh, well, I had a few nice bits come this week. My latest batch of comics came through from Matt at Automatic, so I've got my latest bunch of comics to read. But I also got, and this is not good for podcasting, but it's very good for me, it's the Viz Media tribute to Star Wars. So it's an annual. It's basically like an old UK annual size.
Yeah.
Beautiful painting of Vader and the Stormtroopers on the cover coming through the Tantive 4. And going through it, all Japanese artists. It gives me a good sort of Star Wars Visions vibe because of that style of artwork. Absolutely gorgeous. Can't wait to get it reviewed for the site and get the post on. A few other little knickknacks. I ordered some badges from eBay. So it was basically like the cinema badges you get in the States. It was a Disney Parks badge, Force Awakens playing now. There was the Last Jedi badge, a Square Solo badge. So little bits to put on the shelves. Other than that, Nothing.
I'm trying to kind of pace it a little bit because sometimes I get months where a lot comes in 1 week or 2 weeks, and partly that's just down to the whole nature of pre-ordering figures and having you get like nothing or not much for the rest of the month. So I'm just trying to kind of spread it out a little bit. So like every week there's a nice little sprinkling of Star Wars just to come through the letterbox.
Brilliant. Well, we've got loads to talk about on this show today. We are part of the Star Wars Zone next weekend at London Film and Comic Con, but joining us on the Fantha Tracks table is Adam Christopher. Everybody in the Star Wars galaxy should, if they've not already, be reading his book, Shadow of the Sith. It's absolutely fantastic. We've reviewed it on Fantha already. We've got another review of the audio book coming. Adam has been on Fantha Tracks before. He was on Making Tracks Live at Star Wars Celebration. We're going to be doing, you and me, Mark, we're going to be doing at 5 o'clock on Saturday, the 9th of July, on the cosplay stage at London Film and Comic Con. We're going to be sitting down and doing a Making Tracks Live. We're going to be talking to Adam about the book, but very much looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun. And what are the Rebel Legion planning for the Star Wars Zone, Mark?
We are bringing with us a Tatooine set and our beloved Tantive 4 corridor. So I'll be doing a little bit of everything actually at LFCC. I'm going to be with you guys for Fantha Tracks. I'm going to be with Rebel Legion, and I might even try and squeeze into my Stormtrooper armour for a little bit of time with a 501st. So busy day, and we will be collecting across the whole weekend for Angel Man. That's basically the chosen charity for the Star Wars Zone, and then also hopefully a Wookiee and some other costumers walking around trying to collect donations for photo ops. And from what I understand, it's pretty much sold out, at least Saturday anyway, for LFCC, so it's going to be a busy day. I'm really looking forward to it because it sounds like Mr. Dave Tree has done a really good job with trying to bring and kind of make a cohesive area for the Star Wars Zone, so I'm going to be really excited to see what he's actually been able to do.
Yep, Dave's a genius. He always pulls good things together. Looking forward to it as always. You've just alluded to that. Adam is bringing 10, read the article on Fantha, we say ultra limited copies, really are 10 of the US editions, the Del Rey US editions of Shadow of the Sith, 10 of the US Del Rey editions of his Stranger Things novel, Darkness at the Edge of Town, which is all about Hopper and his past as a police officer. David Harbour is one of the main guests at the show, so there might be some link up there if you think about it. He's got 10 copies of that. Once they're gone, they're gone. That's all he's bringing, and 200 of the book plates. And the book plates are only £2, and the proceeds from those £2 book plates is going to Angelman, which is Fanthatrack's chosen charity and the chosen charity of the Star Wars Zone. So wonderful fundraising opportunities there. Can't wait. We're going to be bringing content from Star Wars Zone to Fanthatrack's Radio over the next couple of weeks.
Hi, this is John Morton from The Empire Strikes Back. I'm Dak Rotha, or Bespin Boba, and you're listening to Fanthatracks.
With only 275 days to go until the opening day of Star Wars Celebration Europe at the Excel Centre in London, news arrives of changes to stages and tickets being made available. First off, there will be this time round something called the HoloNet News Stages, which is going to incorporate podcasts and fan sites and media outlets in what we assume, and this is all assumption, in what we assume will be another area of the show. So that's a change. That means there's no more podcast stage, new things happening, exciting times, but more exciting than that, I would argue, was that tickets for the show became available on June the 30th at 5 o'clock UK time, which meant that people from all around the world were sitting at their computers, clicking, getting in virtual queues and buying tickets. Did you get your tickets?
Oh, by the skin of my teeth, I tell you. I always buy my tickets, even though sometimes I'm lucky enough to get exhibitor passes for previous celebrations because of the involvement with Rebel Legion and having to bring stuff and set stuff up and what have you. I cannot remember if in 2016 there was a virtual queue or not, but I certainly pushed it away from my mind. So therefore, when suddenly I'm there at 4:45 and then I'm put into a virtual queue, which actually then said you've been given a random position in said queue, I'm just like, well, this is a bit odd. At 5 o'clock, you then put into another queue and it says wait time about an hour. This isn't looking good. But luckily, by the time I got down to, getting the tickets, I was able to get the 2 4-day passes, plus quite a lot of merch, which then actually put the credit card bill quite a bit higher than I think the missus was expecting. You can't just buy one patch, one pin, one badge. You've got to buy 2 patches, 2 pins and 2 badges, plus a shirt for her and a shirt for me. And Sunday, it's like, wow, that's it's about 600 quid. After we checked out and stuff, I started seeing that people were saying that the 4-day ticket was sold out.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was in the queue. Some of our colleagues from Fanthatracks were in the queue, and other friends were all queuing. And between the group, I'll say collectively the group, we all managed to get tickets, but some got 4-day. We were the same as you. I think we might have even been messaging as it was all happening. Yeah. The 4 days had gone. And then other people were getting the single-day tickets, which were obviously, by the nature of how these things work, a lot more expensive to get 4 one-day tickets than 1 4-day ticket. You're right, on social media, a lot of people talking about it. Obviously, some people missed out and they're disappointed, but I think it's important to remember that usually, and I'm saying usually because usually there's the light system where you can sell your tickets on afterwards. I'm hearing that there's not a light system this time.
It's not.
So that's changed, and the tickets, they say, are non-transferable, so I don't quite know how that's going to work out if things alter and change, but nevertheless, they usually do a second wave of tickets, don't they?
They have done in the past. I don't quite know the reason behind it. I mean, because you kind of think, surely, and I think this is the concern, and I felt bad for people because I've got a Rebel Legion celebration booth planning group, and we're all chatting, and everybody's like Fanthatracks, they were all in the queue, and somebody was waiting 50 odd minutes, and somebody was waiting 20 minutes, and somebody was 6 minutes, and I was kind of in between, and I was getting a little bit nervous. We bought 2 tickets, and then a couple of members, they missed out and only got the single 4-day tickets, and they're paying double the amount. Well, if you've got 4-day tickets in your basket, surely they could have applied some kind of discount at that point to then knock it down to the same price as a 4-day pass or something like that, because it just seemed like bonkers. You could understand, if you want to only have a Saturday and a Sunday ticket or a Friday or a Monday ticket, then those prices need to be fairly high. But then if you're getting exactly the same as what somebody else is for a 4-day pass, then it seems a little bit unfair. That was where a lot of the grumbles were coming from. I believe like an exhibition hall at XL can hold about 65,000 people, I think. If they've sold out of the Saturday passes individually and obviously the 4-day passes, there's going to be at least, I say, a good 65,000 people there on the Saturday. At the moment, there's still tickets for the Monday and the Friday, and I think also the Sunday. It seems like Saturday is going to be the busy day. And obviously it's over that Easter bank holiday weekend. I've got friends and Rebel Legion and UK Garrison members who are only able to do the Saturday and Sunday, but can't stretch to the whole 4 days, just partly because of, it's a weekend you'd normally do a lot of stuff with the family. So I think everybody's kind of focused on the weekend. So hopefully, though, they do release more tickets. But it's odd, isn't it? I think everybody gets their pitchforks out pretty quickly. And I mean, I don't even know necessarily if the way of assigning people random numbers in the queue is fairer than first come first served, not knowing where you are in relation to other people. I think a little bit frustrating, and then also it adds to the stress as well. But that being said, you've got tickets, I've got tickets, we're going to Celebration, baby.
275 days to go until Celebration. We're going to be talking about Celebration a lot.
This whole HoloNet news stage, do you reckon this is something that is because there's so many more outlets now? It's not just podcasts. And you think 5 or 6 years ago, there was pretty much just podcasts, a few YouTubers, but now it's, it's podcasts, it's TikTok. Each of these platforms have people who have got a large number of followers and subscribers and that. And I suppose it's a way of acknowledging the importance and how the fan community itself is changing as well.
You go back to 2015 when the podcast stage started, Anaheim. I mean, there was 1 million podcasts then.
Yeah.
Good grief, there's 1 billion now, but there was a lot then. That was what it was, and it's run for 5 shows as the podcast stage, and always done well, always had lots of people coming in. It's been a busy area, but there's so many outlets that are purely social media or purely YouTube that it's quite forward-thinking of Reed and Lucasfilm and Disney as well, of course, the 3 of them together, to think, well, let's expand what is the podcast stage, because there are other medias other than just podcasts. There are other outlets other than just websites. Let's put these different ways of expressing Star Wars into a new zone, which, as you say, they've called the HoloNet News Stages. And its stage is plural, not singular. So there's going to be multiple things within there, we'd like to think. But my gut's telling me that they'll pull the fan groups into an area. It feels like a zone to me.
Yeah.
No inside track, but it feels like a zone. So it feels like they want the fan groups to be together. What was like the Star Wars University or the Star Wars fan stage feels like it's all going to come into one sort of chunk of the room. And you made a good point. I'm going to steal your thunder here, but you said it. Maybe if they test it, try it at Excel in London. No doubt it's going to be a smaller convention than an Orlando or Chicago or an Anaheim. If they try it here and it works and it provides content for fans, I mean, we all know there's the patch trading stuff and the swag trading stuff and all the things that fans make. A podcast is no different than making a patch or a pin. It's just a different way of expressing your love for Star Wars.
Yeah.
If that works, maybe they'll, at the next show, wherever the next US show is, and I'm certain we'll know where that US show is next before we get to Celebration Europe in London. If it works here, I think it might just be a good template to go forward. You said that, so I'm stealing your thunder.
That's
there.
all right. Just picking up on what you said about multiple stages, that makes a lot of sense. If you run a YouTube channel and it's like a video cast, they're probably going to need to have different requirements than if you are a TikTok channel. So you probably find out if there's going to be different environments. Rather than just having a podcast stage and then a rather crammed podcast running order, you could have stuff on 2 or 3 different stages, all creating content for Star Wars and Star Celebration at the same time without them actually crossing over. You think a TikTok video is, 15, 20 seconds, something like a minute or 2. So that would be something completely different to like a more of a long form interview, video chat, or even a podcast format. So it's interesting, and it'd be interesting to see how they define that and how then it gets separated out. But the plan is, regardless of how many stages there are, I think that me and you need to try and get on every single one of them.
Well, that sounds like a challenge I could be up for. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, we better start practicing our TikTok dances or whatever it is you have to do.
I'm a great dancer. You know this. I'm a great dancer.
Yeah, great dad dancer anyway.
Hello, I'm Ahmed Best, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
So this week we've got a listener's question. It's from Dan Lowe. Dan, you may know, is one of the contributors to Panther Tracks. He writes some of our episode reviews. It's a simple one. How did the clone troopers know to not kill Anakin during Order 66? Was it hard-coded into the chips? What do you think, Mark?
I think it's possibly not necessarily down to Anakin per se. I wonder if it was slightly more a blanket order than that, and it was kill all the Jedi, don't kill anybody who isn't a Jedi. There's got to be some kind of delineation between what a Jedi is and what a Sith is or something like that. They did kill every single Jedi with extreme prejudice, so therefore you think it must have just been something along the lines of an encoded order into the chip that says you can't just kill people with lightsabers because The Sith have lightsabers, so therefore it might be something along the lines of there's got to be some kind of criteria as to what they consider a Jedi or a Jedi Padawan or something like that. So I was just going to think it was probably just down to, you know, how the actual algorithm associates what a Jedi is as to somebody who isn't a Jedi. If you gave somebody else a lightsaber who was neither Sith nor Jedi, would they have blasted them down as well?
The one sort of blocking the road to that is why then would they have shot at Bail Organa when he sees Jet Zakasa get taken down? He's not holding the lightsaber, he's not a Jedi.
Because he's a
but
Jedi
they start
sympathizer?
shooting at him. He's a sympathizer, yeah, that's true. So there's the nuance there. But I just wonder, because we saw stuff in Clone Wars, we've seen the physical chip and we've seen the Bad Batch and the chips get taken out. I just wonder, because obviously those clones are bred and trained and all the other elements, but you know, Anakin had only become Darth Vader hours before Order 66, really. It's very, very close to that time frame. So all I can think is a couple of things. One, either Palpatine had worked into the system, the algorithm, if you like, that you follow the orders of Darth Vader, and Palpatine had decided a long time before that if Anakin was turned, he would be Darth Vader. You know, we think he's kind of going, I shall call you Darth Vader. And it's just a bit of his being dramatic because he's already decided that he's going to be Darth Vader. And that's already in the chip. Or he was so confident in the long-term plan that we shall watch your career with great interest. That whole Phantom Menace moment that leading up to Attack of the Clones and the building of the army, which was already well in process by then, as we know, that he'd decided that Anakin was the chosen one. He was the chosen one for him, and that he coded it in there that you follow the orders of Anakin. You know, we've just had Kenobi where Reva knows that Anakin and Vader are the same person, and you wonder with the clones, there would be plenty of clones who knew that Anakin Skywalker and Darth Vader were the same guy as well, if you think about it, but they either died or, like the one you see on Dayu, just defeated and beaten and no one pays any attention to them. But nevertheless, I just wonder whether it's something like that, whether it's coded further back than up front.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's not necessarily within the realms of impossibility, given how Palpatine is such a planner, as you said. Or it could be some kind of firmware upgrade. We don't necessarily know what the chip's capability is. And also it's Star Wars, so it's, you know, the technology is old school, but also it's super hyper, like futuristic modern. You know, has that got some kind of Wi-Fi encoding? So when actually they receive the Order 66, there's also a encoded signal in that, which then actually updates their firmware into the chips, for example, which then has got that profile of Anakin. You know, from a more kind of poetic and less practical perspective, the notion that Palpatine is the grand master planner and schemer of the whole thing, it kind of feels quite right. And I suppose in some respects it adds emphasis to his own brilliance about how far back actually he really identified and knew that Anakin was going to be his apprentice at some point. I mean, it would be interesting to see, for example, if that order would then make somebody like Count Dooku as well exempt, or Darth Maul exempt as well from that at that point.
There could be a very practical element, because when you see Palpatine send out, you know, the time has come, execute Order 66, and then you see certain shots of clone commanders on vehicles, it's him saying the same thing, but it differently, execute Order 66. So there's certain commanders around the galaxy you think that he actually personally holographically appeared in their cockpits because you saw it, saying, Commander, Captain, whatever, execute Order 66. So he's actually instructing key people around the galaxy to carry out his orders because he knows where all the chess pieces are.
Yeah.
It could just be a very practical point of, we're on Coruscant, Palpatine's there. So Palpatine could literally walk out in front of the 501st and say, this is your new commander, Darth Vader. And they are now Vader's fist, essentially, as we know. And that first march into the temple to take out the kids, which of course you see elements of in Book of Boba Fett and again in Kenobi, that's the moment where he takes command of the 501st and those troopers specifically, and they know not to mess with him. And then, of course, off the back of that, any other, like you said, you know, if he's waving a red lightsaber around, they're not gonna mess with him. Which, of course, Anakin isn't at this point. He's still using his blue one, which is kind of interesting, which I've never really thought of before. You'd think Vader, that the Emperor would have given him a brand new lightsaber. He's a Sith. Why is he waving a blue lightsaber around? He should have had a red one. But yeah, I think you could probably contrive quite easily practical or quite fantastical reasons why, and both would work equally well.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video, and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
So the Obi-Wan Kenobi finale, the show is behind us already. Felt like it was barely with us, but the viewing figures for the Disney Plus show have been fantastic. They brought in an audience of 1.8 million from the Wednesday to the Sunday, which is 20% up on the Book of Boba Fett, which did 1.5 million. We also hear that the show racked up 1 billion minutes of viewing, according to Nielsen. Incredible numbers, record-breaking numbers for Disney Plus. Kenobi is king at the moment. Incredible numbers, fantastic numbers, and very solid for Star Wars. Do you think now we've had such good numbers, do you think it's going to be almost impossible for Disney, Lucasfilm, and Disney Plus as an entity to not go, we've got to do more with Kenobi?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. You kind of think, you look at what The Mandalorian did, as soon as that became a big hit, they were all over that and, season 2, and look at the merch rolling out and stuff. But then I suppose the difference is that Kenobi is that legacy character that with him comes a certain level of responsibility. You kind of then think, well, are they going to play it safe and be a little bit cautious? And you think it would be a no-brainer to at least put a second season on the cards for Kenobi.
I was a guest on Star Wars Sessions this past week. They did a roundtable look back at the whole of the season. Great fun as always. Star Wars Sessions guys, you'll meet them in the Star Wars Zone at LFCC next weekend. But during that conversation, one of the things that came up was, and it's kind of related to this, Book of Boba Fett held the record previously for Star Wars anyway, for the big numbers. And yet I don't think any of us, especially post-Celebration Anaheim, are now expecting a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett. It feels like it was a one-off thing. Book of Boba Fett should have been the limited series and Kenobi should have been season 1 as opposed to the other way round. But the Book of Boba Fett served its purpose of bringing Boba Fett, not only bringing him back into the world as a fully fledged character, which he'd already done in Mando anyway, but wrapping up those story elements of, well, how did he get out of the Sarlacc pit and why is he this version of Boba Fett that's so different to the one we knew before? And even Tamura Morrison is saying, if we do a season 2, he's now set to be the badass Boba Fett that we all know. So even Tamura Morrison wants that older version of Fett that we knew from the OT more than this current version, more introspective. He's been through different things. Do you think it could be the case that now Kenobi is back as a character? And we're in a different time period to the Mando stuff, but now Kenobi's back and we know that there's a reason for him to leave Tatooine and away. Do you think that it just means that you could see Kenobi turn up in, let's say, could turn up in Andor, or could turn up in a standalone film set between the, Sith and A New Hope now, or whatever? Do you think that's more the play that they'll go?
Before, if suddenly Kenobi just appears and pops up in Andor, I think everybody would be like, WTF.
What, the Force?
Yeah, what the Force? But then at the same time, you kind of go, well, it's like the moment you first see Grogu, or Baby Yoda as he was known at the time, heal somebody in the Force, you're like, okay, that's a bit odd. And then you see it in The Rise of Skywalker and suddenly like, okay, well, this is kind of one of these things that is now part of the canon and stuff, and it's cool. And then the same kind of thing when Rey kind of reaches out with the Force to kind of grab up a ship. You're like, hang on a sec, that's not how the Force works. But then you cut back to episode 5 of Kenobi and you see Vader do exactly the same thing. It all becomes a little bit more justified. Now we've had to live with Kenobi and changes they've made to canon and given us a new perspective. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if they did something like that. I mean, it would be fantastic. With Andor, you've got that Bail Organa, Mon Mothma angle. Bail knows Kenobi. It's whether or not Bail puts stock in the fact that actually Kenobi needs to be involved in formation of a rebellion. So I suppose it would depend upon how or why Kenobi needs to go off. I don't necessarily know if Kenobi is going to make loads of appearances. It would be great. I mean, I would really like to see season 2 of Kenobi. It has to be done well, and I think it has to be done with need, I think there needs to be a really good reason. I don't necessarily just want to see Kenobi popping up on Canto Bight because he fancies a flutter on the Thaviers.
Yeah, there needs to be, like I say, there needs to be a very good reason why you would use this character again. And we've seen it around on social media for the past few weeks now. The people who loved it really just bought into it and went with it. This is my opinion. The people whose headcanon was so entrenched they couldn't conceive of any reason why Ben would do anything other than sit on a rock with a pair of macro binoculars watching Luke. Now you've given him the motivation. It's canon now, so we're not going to go back and remake it. He's basically said to Owen and Beru, you can look after him every bit as well as me. I'm going to step back and take a back seat because now he's seen more of the galaxy. He's seen what's going on out there. He won't have probably likely not have left Tatooine since he landed there. He's probably been there since then. So he's only seen what he's seen on Holonet feeds and whatever, and he kind of get the feeling that he's not sitting there on the evening watching his television or whatever the Star Wars version of a television is. He's not doing that, so he's living a solitary life. So he's seen some of the galaxy and now knows that there's a lot more at stake. He knows that Anakin is Vader and Vader is doing all the things he's doing and blah, blah, blah. So there's now way more of a reason for him to get involved because he's now Obi-Wan Kenobi again. He's not just Ben Kenobi as he was at the start. To
have Ben kind of operating a little bit in the shadows to really be that thorn in Vader's side, I wonder, if you were to actually run with that idea of, you know what, I'm just going to keep tabs on Vader. Doesn't matter where he turns, what he tries to do, I'm going to try and foil it. I'm not going to try and take him down again because clearly I don't think I can actually win. But you know what? I think I'm going to just try and make Vader's life a living hell, so therefore he doesn't destroy other people's lives.
Yeah.
Maybe not quite so vindictive, but along those lines anyway.
Ben never wanted to be a general, did he? He was a Jedi, and the Jedi, it was all part of Palpatine's play to destabilise them, but, making them generals, de facto generals that the clones are going to follow. That was never what, one, he trained for, or two, he wanted. And I often wonder what Qui-Gon would have done in the same situation, whether he would have willingly led clone troopers into battle. Like, you kind of feel like Anakin was born to it, but Ben wasn't. So to see Ben regain an element of leadership, but still be the guy leading from the front and willing to sacrifice and take things on his own shoulders was interesting. Now you've got to think, well, if they do something else with Kenobi as a limited series or a season 2 so many years on, or however they want to phrase it, obviously his powers diminish over time. He's still strong enough to take down Darth Maul, but then Darth Maul's probably not at his best either. He's a long way since Phantom Menace to get to the point of where he is at A New Hope. And you said it in the show recently, he's kind of stalling for time. He's able to keep Vader at bay for long enough. He knows enough, he can do enough to keep Vader at bay. And that the last two things he sees when he looks across, we always think of him looking at Luke, but he's not just looking at Luke, he's looking at Leia. That's why he's like, oh, this is the moment. And he lifts his sword and Vader takes him out and doesn't understand any of what he's said, but it's all set the next table of play.
Fantatrax. Voodoo!
So we return to Blackburn and Star Wars Fan Fun Day from May 2022 for another one of our catch-ups with the stars of Star Wars, and this time it's with Matt Denton. He was an electronic design and development supervisor on the Star Wars sequel trilogy, amongst other things, including Rogue One and Solo, and I had the chance to sit down with him at Star Wars Fan Fun Day to talk a little bit about that and other stuff. So here's my chat with Matt Denton at Star Wars Fan Fun Day. Here at Star Wars Fan Fun Day, I'm here with Matt Denton, sitting at the table. The crowds are still here, the sun is still shining, there's some sort of impromptu football match happening. How's it going?
All right, yeah, pretty good. Yeah, I mean, it's the place to have a football match, I suppose. We are in a football stadium.
There is a certain logic.
I'm not sure how impromptu that was. I think it's more of an impromptu Star Wars convention at a football stadium.
That makes more sense. That makes way more sense. We had dinner with the stars last night, which was awesome, as it always is. Fan Fun Day's been brilliant. I don't know what time it is, about 3 o'clock now. How's it been for you?
It's been busy. I mean, it's quietened off now. The morning was very busy. I think everyone comes in to get their photos done and that, and the signatures. And now it's sort of just quietening off a bit. I'm ready to jump in the car and drive home. Not looking forward to the 5-hour drive, but it's been a great fun day and a really fun evening as well. So yeah.
And how's life with you? Life keeping you busy?
It is, yeah. I'm not on any productions at the moment. I've had about 6-7 months since the last production finished. Might be starting another one soon. I'm still looking forward to seeing our work from last year and Andor, so that'll be good. Looking forward to seeing that. But otherwise busy doing other engineering projects. Yeah.
Brilliant. How's the experience of working on Andor, knowing that it's coming out, but that shift from working on a movie to a TV show? Is there no discernible difference? Is it just a different medium that we're seeing it in?
No, it's quite different. Feels very different. Films, you can feel there's a beginning, middle and end. With a TV series, it sort of just feels like it drags a bit because I suppose you keep starting episodes and finishing episodes and then starting episodes. And also you have 3 different, director and AD teams come in. So you get used to one director, and then they switch because he goes off and edits the couple of episodes he's filmed. So you'll kind of get used to a crew, and then they change, and then that crew changes, and it's also even some of the film, the camera crew and stuff will switch in and out throughout the series, so they go off and do other projects. It's a very different feel. I think I'd rather do film, if I'm honest, but. Hopefully the results are good anyway. So from what yeah.
I mean, with TV, then your brief is laid out. You know what you're doing. I guess it's the interface with the production that changes as it moves on across. However, 10 episodes, whatever it is. Yeah. It's just trying to keep continuity throughout that, But I don't know. I've yet to see any of the rushes or anything from it. So, but I'm excited to see a new character that we worked on. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah. And the intervening time, you say you were keeping yourself busy with engineering work. What have you been working on?
I've been building a jetpack, actually. Wow. Yeah. I've been working on as you do, a jetpack. Yeah, a company set up with a business partner called Maverick Aviation. And it's like a self-stabilising jetpack, so anyone could fly it. So we've had a couple of government grants for that. But it's pretty hard work. It's not easy making jetpacks, otherwise everyone would be doing it. But that's just sort of coming to the end of a grant, and then we'll figure out what goes on from there. But as I say, I might be jumping back onto this another production. So yeah.
And when you say self-stabilising, so anyone can fly it, in theory, I could jump on it and point and click, and it would take me there.
Yes, exactly that. It's basically it's more or less you're strapping a massive jet-powered drone to yourself. Wow. And how easy drones are to fly these days. It's a bit like that. Okay. Yeah.
That is fascinating. That is fascinating. And so, obviously, whilst we've got you here, you worked on the sequel trilogy. And it's a very obvious question, but I'm going to ask it. Any moments when you look back on your experience, be it something that came up on screen, something you worked on in the shop that just came out way better than you expected? Is there a moment where you just really thought, wow, I absolutely smacked that one straight down the middle?
I think obviously the standout moment for I think we just pulled off something wonderful was the BB-8 rollout on stage at Star Wars Celebration. That was a magical moment, which I don't think you could ever repeat it. But we didn't really know how magic it was until we went back and watched the footage back ourselves, because you're in the moment, you don't really realise it.
Never in a room gasped quite like that.
No, exactly. Silence and then a roar. It's quite weird. That has got to be the standout moment throughout the whole thing, I think. But there's lots of little moments with characters. Babu Frick was lovely to film. That was a couple of weeks we were filming that with Shirley, and she was amazing, and the whole puppeteering crew. And it was just moments where you could tell the crew were looking at it and just giggling and laughing and stuff. And that was just, you could tell it was a cute character. It was a nice thing. It just came together well.
Where, for you're a problem solver. That's part of your job. So where does the satisfaction lie? Is it in the final performance? Is it in figuring out how the performance is made? Where does your satisfaction lie, if that makes any sense?
I really enjoy, the reason why I like what I do is because I get to do the engineering, some of the engineering on these droids and what have you. One of the nicest things to me is to be able to help create something like BB-8, let's say, but then get to drive it. I particularly like driving things rather than performing things. I do like performing as well, but I love driving machines, droids, whatever it might be, jetpacks, So I love the fact that when I've created the control system, whatever it is, and then figuring out how best to drive something that's never been made before, like a BB-8, So that's where I get my enjoyment.
That's fascinating. I'm fascinated by the way your brain works, because I can't do a Rubik's Cube, so how you guys do what you do is beyond me.
Other people do things I can't figure out. I can't paint or draw to save my life, so there you go. So
Brilliant. Well, thanks for giving us your time. Always good to catch up.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
If you had to spare $5,000, and I say $5,000, I mean $5,000, what would you spend it on? Would you spend it on a couple of nights out of a Galactic Star Cruiser? Possibly 5,000 Rose or Rey Last Jedi action figures that's just still on the shelves at the moment. Some screen-used props from a prop store auction. A Stormtrooper costume from RS Props. Or would you spend it on a Kyber crystal drink that you can now get from one of the Disney cruises? And that is a big question, because basically this week it was announced that, yes, you can spend $5,000 on a Kyber crystal drink. What do you reckon? worth it? Does it sound like something you've got money for? That's a question.
Well, in my personal experience, no, I don't. If I did, I probably still wouldn't, because I've only got one kidney and I can't drink spirits. So I can only have the odd beer and the odd wine. So I have to be very careful. I've got to say, we posted the pieces on the site about this, and part of it was a little wry smile, because it's kind of like, that is just so beyond anything else that it's not worth getting in any way het up about. And because it is so far out of my personal price range, and even if I'd got the money to pay for it, I don't think I could justify that for one drink. There are a few caveats to put in, and before we describe what's in the drink, you don't just get the drink.
No, you don't.
And I'm reading this directly from the site. You also get a bottle of sparkling wine from Skywalker Vineyards. I have had some of the wine from Skywalker Vineyards, and it is very, very nice. The metal plate and cups it's served on, a Star Wars backpack, a water bottle, hyperspace lounge decor for your cabin, and a voucher for a guest to visit Skywalker Ranch. A voucher for one guest. So if you're there with your missus, or you're there with your husband, or your significant other, you both need to have a drink so you can both go to Skywalker Ranch. It's a 10 grand drink, really. The drink itself, they spoke to one of the waiters, the bartenders, and they explained what's in it. It includes Japanese citrus fruit called a yuzu, as well as kumquat, Grand Marnier Quintessence, which is expensive. There's shots of Pappy Van Winkle's Family Reserve, which is a 23-year-old bourbon, and a bottle of that is $6,000. And Taylor's Fladgate Kingsman Edition Very Old Tawny Port, that's $3,000 a bottle. So it's very expensive ingredients. My question is, what's any of that got to do with Star Wars?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, when I saw the post and that, I thought to myself, well, surely if it doesn't include unicorn tears and at least the juice from George's left nut, then surely it's not worth buying. I mean, to be fair, Quintessence, now that is a little bit Star Wars, because actually that is what Alan Dean Foster called the laser beam that was generated by Starkiller Base. It was something to do with quintessence, and I thought that was quite a cool word in itself. But the rest of it, it's just super expensive drinks, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
For the price of a drink, you are getting, this other stuff, you're getting all the merch you just said, and the visit to Skywalker Ranch. So that's in itself got to be worth a pretty penny. But I suppose what it's doing is that ultimately Star Wars, for the most part, Star Wars is for everyone. But ultimately, there's also got to be a top 1% Star Wars, which is only available to those who really can afford it. And I guess maybe this is part of this whole aspirational lifestyle as well, of like Disney cruises and Disney guest resorts and stuff like that, is that actually, whilst you can go into B&M and you can buy a cheap figure or a pack of playing cards which save Mandalorian for like £1, at the completely other end of the market is top prestige kind of packages that will only appeal to certain people. This is the kind of thing that Jake Paul or his brother or something like that will order about 10 of them, throw them over each other's face on YouTube or something like that. But, therefore it kind of like, it builds into the hype. As with everything, if you can't afford it and you kind of hear somebody spent $5,000 on a drink, you're just like, are you nuts? It's weird that they've had to feel like they've had to justify this drink by adding all this extra stuff. What would be the individual item values for a backpack, a water bottle, even the voucher for a Skywalker Ranch tour? I mean, I don't know if you can actually just go and order a tour at Skywalker Ranch or if it's invite only. And therefore, it's like, are you kind of almost paying your way into a certain level of access to Star Wars as well?
Yeah.
It doesn't really bother me at all, but actually when you start to break it down, it starts to give you a bit of a sour taste, and I don't think it's got anything to do with Pappy Van Winkle's Family Reserve.
It is so far out of our potential experience, it's not even worth worrying about. And I'm sure if Porsche released a car that was $750,000 and they stuck Darth Vader's face on the bonnet of the car and said it's a Star Wars exclusive, I'm not going to lose any sleep over not owning that Porsche.
No.
That being said, like you say, $5,000 for the drink. And we know people who've been to Galactic Star Cruise and people who are going. And in fact, we know somebody who's there right now. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing what they experience and what they get from it. You are going to come across people who've been or have done it or are going, as I say. And maybe in time, but that's within reach for couples or groups of 4. You could work it so that it's something you could work into a broader holiday. Obviously, if you're coming from outside the States, it's got to be part of another holiday. But nevertheless, it's something that you could consider, and it's not completely unfeasible to do. And it sounds like it's great fun when you do it. But there will have been focus groups. They will have done their research. They won't have put any time into this if they didn't think they were going to sell them. So clearly there is a market for people who are on the Disney Wish, which only launched this past week, getting into Hyperspace Lounge, which is a reserve-only place that only holds 50 people at a time. So it's a bit like going to Ogres. You've got to book it and get in there. If you're at that level of being able to get there and go and do it, and there's a drink there that's $5,000 and you think, why not? And you can do that, then great. Because like you say, there's all these other additional little tiers that come with it. Quite apart from the tiers when you get your credit card bill.
And the tiers from a unicorn, which makes up most of the drink. So, Mark, can you let everybody know how they can get in touch?
Yes, I can. If you want to be a part of the action and stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news, visit panthertracks.com or check out the free Panther Tracks app through the App Store to follow us on your mobile device. You can reach out to us and send in your listeners' questions by emailing radio@panthertracks.com. We're all out of listeners' questions now. We've chewed through the lot of them, so send in your questions. We're here and ready to answer them. Comment, like and share on any of our social media feeds at Panther Tracks, and be sure to subscribe, leave a review, preferably a 5-star one, on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcatcher or smart speaker of choice. And as always, thanks to James Semple for composing the Panther Tracks intro, Adam O'Brien for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. Remember, tune in to Good Morning Tatooine. It's live Sunday evenings, 9 o'clock UK, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on Facebook and YouTube. And check out Panther Tracks Radio on Friday nights at 7 o'clock UK time for new episodes of The Panther from Down Under, Planet Leia, Desert Planet Discs, Start Your Engines, and Cannon Fodder. And that's me done for this episode.
Brilliant. And guess what? I'm going to see you in a few days at LFCC. And so with that in mind, everybody who's listening to the sound of my voice right now, if you're at LFCC, make sure you come down to the Star Wars Zone. The first person who comes up to me and whispers in my ear, I know how to get a bantha to roll onto its tummy, will get my very own, and there is only one of them because I've only been given one, a very own Panther Tracks pin.
You're giving it away after all that moaning about not getting on, you're giving it away.
Yeah, because I'm pretty damn sure 99% of people don't even know what I look like, let alone will actually have the balls to come up and whisper in my ear unannounced. So if you do, by all means, come up and see me. I'm at LFCC in Star Wars Zone all weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. For everybody else, thank you very much for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever that may be. Stay safe, take care, and of course, may the Force be with you.
Coming up next on Panther Tracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.
If you've got the balls to come up and whisper in my ear, that might be the episode title.